All right, hello and welcome to another edition of the Muscle and Mind podcast. My name is Rory John O'Sullivan, and what we seek to do here is learn a bit more about the body and the brain so that we can perform at our best in life, in work, and play, and basically so we can wake up every day with good energy, with strength, with confidence, so we can smash our goals, right? So we can perform the way we want to perform, we can show up for our families, we can show up at our work, and we can pursue the mission that we think is worth pursuing. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is my story and how I went from a lawyer to a life coach. Now, off the bat, I'm sure you can tell that is a very big jump, right? That is a very big jump in career. So the reason I want to share this with you today is firstly so I can tell you a little bit more about how I got into this field. But most importantly, it's to show you, not just through theory, but through example, what is possible when you actually identify what it is that you want and you pursue that with absolutely no limitations on your body and your mind. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm an expert in it. It doesn't mean that this was a smooth journey. As you're going to hear, it was most certainly anything but smooth. But the whole point of this is to show you that it's possible and to hopefully give you some of the lessons that I learned along the way without actually having to go through the process and getting the scars. So if you're someone who knows that you can do more, knows that you can be more, you can create more, and what you're currently doing in your life or in your career is not actually what you should be doing, what you know you should be doing, I'm going to teach you in this episode how I personally overcame that and my journey through the process. Hindsight is always the best sight, as they say. So obviously a lot of these lessons I picked up looking back on my journey and not necessarily applying them in the moment. So to give you the quick backdrop, when I was in high school, when I was in matric, year 12, everyone asks you the question, well, what are you going to do after school, right? Are you going to college? Are you taking a gap year? Are you going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a sportsman? And to be honest, I had zero idea what I wanted to do. Literally had no idea what I wanted. And it came about that time where we started having to think about what we're going to do in the next year. And I can so clearly remember getting handed one of those brochures, those flyers, that shows you all of the different courses that a university offers. My mother was working at a university at the time, and it was actually based in my hometown. So naturally, I was looking at that university as a first place, right? Because obviously it would be helpful, I'd be closer to my family, I'd be in the same town I grew up, and a bunch of other benefits that came along with that. So I opened this flyer, I started reading through the courses, and eventually I got to one that said law. And quite honestly, my selection process was very simple. Does it look interesting? Yeah, it does. Do I have the skills to do it? Good writing skills, good marks in history and English, tick. And could I make a lot of money doing this? Tick. And that was it. And I said, that's the course I want to do. Told my parents, I want to be a lawyer. And that's how I decided. So clearly not that much thinking went into that decision. That was a massive decision that was going to shape the rest of my life. Now, I have zero regrets about that decision because that decision has put me where I am today. But I made that choice and I'm blessed. I'm so grateful to this day that I had the privilege and the ability and that my parents were able to give me the ability to pursue a career in something like law. So looking back now, the fact that I chose that so willy-nilly without any thought is a bit of a cringe moment for me, if I'm honest. But that's how you know that you're improving in life. If you cannot look back at the actions you took or the things you said 5 years ago and cringe, you haven't grown enough, right? You should be able to look back at those moments, those Facebook posts from 10 years ago, cringe a little bit, ask yourself who the hell was in your brain writing or saying these things. Because when you do that, you realize that you've grown. So anyways, I picked law and I went into it. And I had great success in my time at college doing law. I enjoyed my studies. I enjoyed my college experience. I got great grades, right? I was placed in some of the top positions in the country in terms of marks and grades. And I don't tell you that to impress you. I do it to express to you how you can be very good at something and still decide that that is not the path you want to follow or the purpose you would like to pursue in your life. Now that took me a very long time to understand, right? Because I thought to myself, I'm good at this. I had job offers. I can make a lot of money. Everyone around me is giving me praise and external validation for getting good grades and telling me how great I'm going to do when I get into actual real law, start practicing and making money. But there was always this little part of me that kind of knew that this wasn't what I was meant to be doing. It's what I was meant to be doing on paper if I looked at my life holistically, right? If I had to see my progression and see the path that I could have ahead of me in life, it was a great thing. But it wasn't until I actually started thinking to myself, what do I really love? What am I passionate about? What is a cause that I'd be motivated to serve every single day? And what career path is going to help me get to those milestones? For me, when I started thinking of those things, that's when the game started to change. Because suddenly I moved from a criteria of, is this socially acceptable? Am I going to make a lot of money? And does the world see this as a good career? Moving from that criteria to the new criteria, which was, do you love this? Are you passionate about the work you're doing and the mission and the purpose and outcome that that work is going to create? And is this something you can see yourself doing for the next 50, 60, 70 years? Now, when I started basing my criteria on that, it became very clear that law was not the right path for me. Now, obviously, this sounds like a very clear, straight line when I speak it to you like this. But in the moment, it wasn't like this at all. There was doubt, there was confusion, there was anxiety, there were so many things that went along with this. So anyway, the way it actually happened is that I was in my last year of law. I was writing my final exams and I'd already got job offers. I'd been interning during the summer or the winter or whenever it was. And I had to make the decision about which firm I was going to apply to. And what actually made me notice that I was thinking of taking another path was the fact that I wasn't actually being that proactive in searching for a job. I got job offers, but I wasn't actually pursuing getting a position at a top firm. And this kind of confused me because I always had great discipline. I was very consistent and responsible in my studies and in my career at that time. But I was hesitating. And it was so unlike me to hesitate to do something that I knew I needed to do. Big light bulb moment there, by the way. What I needed to do. It was simply a belief about what I should do or what I needed to do. An automatic reaction instead of a thoughtful process of what should I do? What can I do? What do I want to do? So anyways, I was in this time not applying for jobs, and then I met a girl. I am blessed to say that that girl is now my wife, but she opened up my mind to the possibilities of what else could be. And as corny as that sounds, she literally ran a motivational retreat. I went to the retreat, and as she went through some of these activities, reflecting on what do you want your life to look like in the next 10 years? What's important to you? What do you value? What mission do you want to serve? What good do you want to do in the world? I started to realize that law was not going to take me down that path at all. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some brilliant lawyers out there. I know people who are lawyers, who are very happy and who do great work. And that's beautiful. But it wasn't the case for me. So I loved the law, but what I actually enjoyed, right? What I was actually passionate about was presenting an argument in a logical way. I was passionate about taking complicated information and turning it into simple, actionable steps. I was in love with public speaking, with debating, with pushing an argument forward that could change someone's mind and therefore create a better outcome. These are all skills and all things that are related to law. But what I really found is that those strengths that I had in law, the ability to speak and to simplify things and debate and communicate, I could use those skills in different areas. And it was only once I started to think to myself, what is the mission that you want to follow? Like, what is the benefit that you want to leave for this earth? When you die, How do you want the world to be different because you were here? And that's the question that kind of stuck in my mind, right? I thought to myself, well, once I'm gone, how do I want people to remember me? What mark do I want to leave on this planet? And those might seem like very intense existential thoughts or questions to ask. But if you actually boil it down, what else is the point, right? We're here to give, to grow, and to make an impact. We're here to make things better for ourselves and the generations that are going to come. So for me, it was very much thinking, I'm good at these skills, but what are my passions? At the time, as I was studying, I was an amateur bodybuilder. I loved fitness, right? I was training every single day. I was coaching people on the side, not for money, not as a job. I didn't even know it could be a job, but I was giving them advice. I was keeping them motivated. I was encouraging them. Even when I was in college, when I was studying for exams, I always found myself in a position where I would speak to people who were stressed. I would help calm them down. I would help refocus them. I would help motivate them. And I would help them simplify the challenges that they were having so they were more resourceful and able to approach that challenge more effectively. Now, I was doing these things naturally. And all of this kind of came to a point when I realized that there's this amazing thing called life coaching, right? I grew up, and at that stage, very, very specifically, watching a ton of Tony Robbins. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tony Robbins is, Anthony Robbins, he's pretty much the godfather of life coaching. He pretty much created the industry of life coaching. And his whole mentality was, well, the best athletes in the world have coaches because a coach gives them perspective. A coach gives them feedback and motivation and guidance and helps them stay on track and perform at their best when they're in the heat of the game. When they are struggling, when they are tired, when they are demotivated, the coach is the one who lifts them back up and redirects them. A coach is the one that looks at their client, looks at their player, sees only the strengths and helps them amend the weaknesses so that they can show up at their best. That is what a coach does. That is how Tony Robbins explained it. And when he explained it to me like that, I realized that I'd been coaching all along. I'd been coaching myself by getting myself in the right state of mind, whether it was to step on a bodybuilding stage, train at 5 a.m. in the morning on 1,000 calories for the day, or study and pass a really tough exam. I was able to get myself in the right headspace to be able to perform at my best. And I found myself absolutely falling in love with the process of doing that for other people. So when I understood and found out that this is actually something you can do for money, right? Because at that stage, it was all a career thing, right? I wanted to make an impact, but I also wanted to make sure that I had food. So once I figured out that this is actually, a job, a profession that you can do, it completely changed the game for me. So to cut this long story short, I left law. I had a conversation with my parents, and I decided that instead of being a lawyer, I'm going to be a personal trainer and a life coach. I'm going to help people get physically and mentally fit and healthy. Once I made that decision, if I look back at it, and if I look at where I am now, it almost seems like a movie kind of script, right? Like I had this massive revelation and made a decision, and then I ran into my new career and my new life, and I succeeded, and it was amazing, and fireworks and fucking butterflies and doves and all cinematic shit started happening. But in reality, it wasn't like that at all. There was a lot of doubt. There was a ton of stress. There was a ton of worry. So what I've done is I kind of looked back at this and I thought to myself, well, if I had to summarize everything I've just told you, what was really going on, right? How did I do it? How did I get through the tough parts? And how did I manage to get to where I am now? Now, once again, I'm not saying this is the system or this is the only way. I'm just looking at what I did and I'm connecting the dots, looking backwards. So if you're someone who's in this situation, the first thing to understand is, and ask yourself, am I really happy with my current profession or just the way that my life is right now? Am I truly happy with it? Now, that doesn't mean you don't have struggles, doesn't mean it's not tough, but do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like this is something that you are doing and should be doing? Is this something that you can see yourself doing for the next 50 years, regardless of how old you are? Me personally, I don't believe in retirement. People who retire tend to live a lot less years overall compared to people who don't retire. So retirement is not on the cards. If you look at all the blue zones of the world, one of the most common themes that runs through all the blue zones is that people don't retire. They stay active, they stay purposeful, and they have a purpose all the way until their old age and into their old age. And it is that proactivity and that purposeful living that helps them maintain that energy and vitality. So you need to ask yourself now, am I really happy with what I'm doing? Am I happy with my current profession or the things that I do on a daily basis? And can I see myself doing this for the next 50 years? Now, if you feel like there is something more you can do, but you think to yourself, well, where do I start, right? I mean, like, what do I even do differently? How do I get out of this place that I'm in? Because for some of you, you may have been in this position for years. You may have been in this position for 10, 20, 30 years, doing the same job, the same profession, the same career, and freaking hating it, right? It's common. How often do you hear people talk about how much they hate their job and hate their boss? Why would we want to live a life where that is the case every single day? Now, don't get me wrong, I understand there's practicality. You've got to put food on the table, you've got to keep a roof over your head, you might have a family to support. But you've got to ask yourself the question, what is going to be the most important thing when you're lying on your deathbed? Is it going to be the fancy cars, the big house, or is it going to be the impact that you made and the type of person that you were in the process? To me, I believe it's the latter. I think that when we get to the end, all we are going to regret is the things that we did not do, the conversations we didn't have, the risks we didn't take, the opportunities that we didn't capitalize on. We will regret not doing the things we knew we could do, but couldn't find the courage to start in the first place. And that is why I'm so passionate about talking about this, because for me, it was such a game changer, and I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I hadn't made the decision to end my career as a lawyer and start my career as a personal trainer and a life coach. Because for me, I enjoyed law. I was good at law, but I loved making an impact in people's mindset and their physical fitness. That was the mission that I was so passionate about. And that was the one thing that the law wasn't giving me. Now, if you've listened to some of our other episodes, we have an episode on purpose. And in this episode, I break down the Ikigai framework. So as a quick introduction, Ikigai is a Japanese word, and it literally translates into a reason for being. One of the reasons they live so long. So Ikigai is this idea of purpose. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the point of getting out of bed in the morning? And the way they find their Ikigai is by finding some activity or career or vocation that lies in the center of 4 key things. What do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need? And what is sustainable? In other words, what can I get paid for or maintain my current lifestyle doing? So when I ran my situation through these 4 things, I looked at it and I said, okay, well, did I love the law? Yeah, I did. I was passionate about the law. I was passionate about learning and studying and getting good grades. Was I good at law? Yes, my grades proved it. I was a very good orator. I could debate very well. I could win arguments. Beautiful. Was it sustainable? Of course. Lawyers get paid good money. I could make a career out of it. But here's where everything changed. Is this a mission that you would be happy leaving the earth and knowing that you accomplished it? And for me, that's where everything kind of fell apart. Because even though there's great things that lawyers can do, of course, it wasn't the mission I was personally passionate about. I looked out in the world and in myself, and I noticed that the most important things were not external. It was the way we thought, the way we regulated our emotional states, our physical body and health and energy and vitality. These were the core things that I could see were determining the quality of people's lives. The way they thought, the way they moved, the way they felt. And what I noticed is that people who were not in the habit of looking after their mindset, their physical and mental health, those were often the people that had the most destructive patterns, that ended up hurting themselves and other people more than anything else. And when I saw that and when I noticed that, I knew that that was my mission. I knew that the world would be so much better if everyone just had a basic understanding of how to keep their body and their mind healthy. Because once you come from a place of well-being, physically and mentally, you can't help but exude and spread that positivity out to other people. You naturally work harder. You naturally create better, more improved things so that you can make the world better. You treat other people better. You treat yourself better. And on top of all of that, you enjoy the process of doing all of these things so much more. So for me, that was my mission. I felt like from a very young age, in this context, when I was in college, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Now, I hadn't had it all figured out, right? I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no freaking clue. But I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew why it mattered so much. And that would be my first piece of advice to you. If you're in a situation where you're unhappy with what you're currently doing and you want to do something that you find more meaningful, that you're more passionate about, ask yourself, is this worthy of my life energy and my time? Is this worthy of me dedicating my resources in order to accomplish? Because for me, when I knew that, when I knew the what and the why, the how became clear. And I think that's where most of us slip up, is that we want to do something, we want to change, we want to pursue a new path, but we don't know exactly how. And that's the mistake we make. We don't need to know the how right now, but we need to be clear on what do we want and why do we want it. When the what and the why are clear, the path works itself out. Because the thing is, there are many ways to get to the top of a mountain. If you commit to making it up the mountain, you will take any path that will get you there. But if you commit to the path, it might lead you to a place that you actually never wanted to go in the first place. And that's what my experience with moving from being a lawyer to a life coach taught me. When I got clear on the what and the why for my life and the impact that I wanted to leave, the how became not relevant. And I don't mean not relevant in that it didn't matter. What I mean is that I would figure it out. I'd make a plan. The path would show itself the more I worked and the more I pushed. And that's exactly what happened. I became a personal trainer. I became a life coach. From there, I went straight into private practice. Luckily, I had an amazing mentor who is now my wife, and I threw myself into it. It wasn't easy. I had a lot of doubt. I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of sleepless nights. I spent the last of my savings that I'd made from working during college to get my personal training and life coach certification. And once I had that, I just started working. That journey has given me so much more than I could have ever imagined. I've traveled to multiple countries. I've worked as a trainer and a coach for some of the most incredible people in the world. I now have the privilege of training and certifying other personal trainers and life coaches so that they can do something that they feel passionate about, that they can earn an income from and live a sustainable lifestyle. I've been able to speak at some incredible events. I've been able to work with some amazing companies like Qatar Airways and help them develop their fitness team and their wellness squad. And all of this would never have been possible if I hadn't just taken the risk of moving towards what I wanted without knowing exactly how I was going to get there. So if you're in a situation like this, if we have to break it down into a framework, there's really 5 things that you need to ask yourself to decide if this new path that you want to go on is right. Number 1, what are you naturally good at? What are the things that people come to you for assistance? What are the things that you can do that other people find challenging? So for me, there was always people coming to me and asking me for assistance, asking me for help to simplify something. And even though they may not have said it, a lot of the time they were coming to me to feel a little bit better, right? For their mindset to be in the right place so they could calm down, get motivated, and focused so they could achieve what they wanted. Number 2 is what lights you up. So what are the things that you love, that you enjoy, right? That you could do for hours and it feels like time is just completely stopped. What are those activities? For me, that was presenting and talking. Who would have known, right? The dude speaking for hours on the other end of a camera. But talking and speaking and sharing the ideas and the comments and the understanding that I gained was, and I'm sure forever will be, one of my greatest passions in life. Because when I can communicate things in a simple and clear way, and that helps someone improve their life, that's it for me, right? That's what lights me up, that's what gets me going. So what are you naturally good at, and what lights you up, right? What puts you on fire that you could do for hours? Number 3 is what aligns with your core values. So this is an important one, right? For example, one of my biggest values is freedom. I love having the freedom of setting my own hours, working when I want to work, doing what I want to do. Now, as a lawyer, that would not have been possible, at least for the first couple of years. You're in a specific job at specific times at specific hours. I did not want that for my life. Now that might sound a little bit cheeky, right? Like, what kind of life do you want to live? You want no responsibility? But that wasn't the case. I was more than happy to work hard. I could work 14-hour days and be very happy. But I wanted to decide on what terms I did that work. So when I was moving into this profession of being a coach, that's one of the values that really stood out for me, because being a coach gives you the freedom to set your own hours, to work with who you want to work with. And once you have that freedom, it makes it a lot easier to build other things in your life. So for me, that was a huge value. Now for someone else, that may not be the right path. They might want more security and stability, because there's also downsides to being a coach and being a self-employed person. There's more risk, there's not as much guarantee and certainty. But for me, when I weighed up the options, that freedom was worth it. Now, I'm not saying you should make that same decision. What I'm saying is you should consider what is most important to me in my life. And if I take this path, if I go down this new path or this new career, is it going to align with my values? For example, if a new career is going to light you up, right? It's going to be a passion point for you, and it's something you're good at, but it'll always mean that you're spending weeks away from your family, then that might be a value you're not willing to give up. So the point is, think about the values. Think about things that are most important to you and how taking this new route is going to affect you. Number 4 is, what is the mission that you are passionate about? Now, we've spoken about this already, right? My mission, the cause I wanted to serve, was to help people get physically and mentally healthy so that they could be the best they could be, which means they could create more beautiful things in the world, which means the world will get better. That was my logic. That still is my logic. So what is the mission that you want to serve? This is really, to me, the core of purposeful living. What are my actions going to create? Not just today, but in the next 5, 10, 50, 100, 200 years. And that's what we need to think about, because when we're lying on that deathbed, we're going to think about the impact we've made. We're going to think about how is life different now for the rest of the world because we've been here. So you need to get clear on what that mission is. It could be ending world hunger. It could be building the next school that's going to educate the masses and help the country get better. Or it could be just simply being the best parent you can be so that your children have a better upbringing than you did. Your mission doesn't need to be some ridiculous, crazy thing like going to conquer Mars, but it does need to be meaningful to you, because that purposefulness, that mission, is what is going to lie at the heart of making the change that you want to make. That is what's going to give you that fulfillment at the end of the day. Things you're good at, things you love, things that are sustainable are great, and they'll give you positive emotion. But fulfillment only comes from serving things outside of you. Fulfillment only comes from making a contribution to the world that you know and you feel is going to make this a better place to live. That is where true fulfillment comes from. Outside service. And last but not least, sustainability. How am I going to make this new path sustainable? Now, this looks different for everyone. I knew that when I stopped being a lawyer and started being a PT and a life coach, that I was going to have to cut my budget a little bit. And that's okay. It was sustainable for me in that moment. And that's one of the points that I want to be clear on here. Making a change and taking the risk are necessary steps to live a life that we want to live. But so often you hear motivational speakers, right, talking about just take the risk and take the leap and, don't think twice, just make the jump. And I think that's bullshit advice. I think you should think twice and realistically consider your options. It's great to be motivated. I'm clearly a huge proponent for motivation. I'm a huge proponent for risk taking. But you've also got to think practically, especially if it's not just you who it's going to affect. So on this point of sustainability, think about how you're going to make this transition work. Do you need savings? Do you need to change something about your lifestyle? Do you need to have a hard conversation to get other people who might be affected by this change into the loop so that you can collaborate and make sure that this change doesn't negatively affect them as well as you and your lifestyle? So with sustainability, it's just about thinking about how am I going to make this work practically? Now you'll notice that's the last step, right? We've done these 5 questions. What are you good at? What lights you up? What aligns with your core values? What serves the mission you're passionate about? And sustainability. We do sustainability last because this is the practical side, the realistic side. But we always make sure we get the what and the why first. Remember? We get the what and the why first. We get that internal fire revved up because that's what's going to give you the fuel. When you are steering this huge new automobile of power, weird metaphor, I know. When you're steering this vehicle now with all that fuel and passion, you still got to steer properly. You can't be crashing into shit. So this is about really asking the tough questions, right? Having the hard conversations, working out what sacrifices you're going to need to make this new reality a reality. And that is around a lot of things, but mostly around finance, time, and resource availability. So have those conversations, ask those questions, and map out how you're going to start this process. So that is, in a nutshell, the basis of how I made the change. Now, what I just want to share with you now for the end is a few things that, once again, I found in hindsight, but that if I'd focused on them and really internalized them at the time, it would have made the transition a lot easier for me. So the first thing is to give yourself time to hear your own thoughts. We're surrounded by so many influences, whether it's our friends or our family or the media or our society, that tell us what we should do. For me, I had people telling me, you should be a lawyer. You're great at being a lawyer. Can you imagine the backlash that I faced when I told people that, hey, I'm not going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a life coach and a PT? A lot. I had a lot of backlash. And not all of it was negative, right? We often think, oh, it's just people being haters. It has nothing to do with that. Sometimes the backlash that you get is coming from a beautiful place. My parents being worried about how I was going to make money, right? My friends and family thinking that I'm throwing away this entire opportunity and this beautiful degree that I put so much hard work into. And it was coming from a positive place, but it was crowding my thoughts. Because when we let other people's opinions crowd our own thoughts, it becomes so busy in our mind that we don't actually have the ability to clearly see what matters most to us. So we have to take the time to be able to listen to our own thoughts, to be able to ask ourselves, what matters to me? What am I going to be grateful that I did in the next 80 years? What is truly the most important outcome for my life? Because regardless of anyone around us, and I have a family, I have friends, I have colleagues, I love them all dearly, but at the end of the day, deathbeds come in one size, and that's single. Because only you are going to live with the consequences of the choices that you make. So make the choices based on what matters to you. That doesn't mean you don't consider other people. And a lot of the time, you'll hear people say, I don't care what other people think about me. And that's bullshit. Of course you do. Everyone cares what other people think. We are social creatures. We are built to care what others think, so we can gain the approval of our society and stay alive and safe. It's not about not caring what other people think. It's about valuing your own opinion more than theirs. Now notice I did not say that their opinion doesn't matter. I would love to hear your opinion, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to accept it or take it on. And the sign of true confidence is where you can hear, or rather the sign of true confidence is when you can hear the opinion of another person, listen to it and learn from it, but not accept it or feel like you have to accept it. That's where true confidence and strength lies. The ability to hear other opinions, take what you need from them to develop yourself, and then make a decision based on your own values and your own understanding of who you are and what you want. So stop saying you don't care what other people think. Stop labeling everyone as a hater and listen. You're going to learn something in the process. But maintain the self-belief and the self-confidence in yourself that even if you hear those opinions, you don't need to let them sway you. But you can learn from them, and that will make you a better person in general because you'll have more information to work with. So give yourself that space. Give yourself that space to think and clearly decide what it is that you want without any external influences. You don't need to worry about what other people think. And I think this is an important thing to talk about because I read something the other day and it really stuck with me. And what it said was, there is no bigger waste of time than worrying about the approval of people who have a life that you do not desire. And that hit me so hard because you often hear people's backlash and their comments about your decision. And it almost always comes from people who have never had to make that decision before. You talk about leaving the country, everyone who's never left the country will give you shit about it. You talk about changing your career and doing something new, the only people that are going to hate on you are people who have never done it. You're never going to speak to someone who's fitter than you, who's going to put you down. You're never going to speak to someone who's wealthier than you, who's going to give you shit about how you make money. The people who have really made it are there to help you. The hate that you get are from people who wish they did the thing you're currently doing. And that's not a reason to give them any grief, and it's not a reason to say you don't value their opinion. But it is a reason to be selective with who you actually speak to and who you let influence your thoughts and your decisions. So when you're making this decision, take opinions from the outside. Absorb the knowledge, absorb the learnings, but have the self-belief and confidence to still make your own decision. This is the key. Another thing to really internalize, which I wish I had internalized, is that making the decision is not the toughest part. It's tough, it's hard, but once it's done, it's done. The tough part is maintaining that decision. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were speaking about their transition from their previous career to a career in health and fitness. And they asked me a very interesting question. They asked me, do you still feel guilty or do you feel bad about having left your career as a lawyer? And I hadn't really thought about it before, but when I think back to those early years, I did feel guilty. I did feel bad, because even though I was stepping into something that I knew was the right decision for me, I was stepping away from something that I still did enjoy. I was stepping away from something that I'd still put a ton of effort into. And the biggest challenge here is that when you make a decision to leave a shitty job or a shitty relationship or a shitty situation, it's easy because you're trading shit for good. And of course you're going to make that trade, right? Who wouldn't? The toughest thing is trading good for great. And that is what stuck with me from this conversation, is that is where the guilt and the feelings of sadness and worry come from. Because you're leaving something behind that was actually good. I was blessed to have the opportunities that I did. I was blessed to have everything that I had. But I had to give up all of that to pursue something that was great. If we want to stand out, we have to be outstanding. If we fail to take risks, we risk missing out on life as a whole. And I think that trade-off of good for great is so difficult, but it's one of the best things that we can possibly do. Because once again, when we get to the end, we're not going to regret what we did. We will regret what we didn't do. We will regret the risks we failed to take. And the two most damaging words in the English language are, what if? What if I took that job? What if I changed my career and became a coach? What if? And it's the what ifs that keep you up at night. If you fail, you fail. You get up, you dust yourself off, you get over it. But if you have a lingering doubt in your mind of what you could have done if you had the courage, that is what's going to keep you up. That is what's going to stay around for longer than it should, because it is an unresolved question. Leave no questions on the table. And that brings me to our final point. Remember that you are going to die. There's a Stoic saying, memento mori, and essentially it translates to life is short. Life is going to end. One day you're not going to be here. And that thought shouldn't depress you. It's not meant to be morbid. It's meant to be motivating. Because one day you're going to die. So you might as well do whatever the fuck you want to do. Because we're all going to end up in the same place. Doesn't mean taking reckless choices or making reckless decisions. But it means that we are this tiny little being on this massive rock floating in the middle of nothing, spinning around a giant fireball, and we're worrying about what people are going to think about the career choices we make, or what we wear, or what we do, or who we decide to be with as a partner. Who fucking cares? We're going to be dead, right? Like, we are so minuscule in the grand scheme of the universe, yet we get so caught up in all these worries and anxieties that 90% of the time don't even happen. They don't even end up happening. They just sit in our brain and replay like some shitty movie on late night TV that has never got off the air. So remembering that we're going to die, for me anyways, just helps me remember that I should pick what I want to do with my time and energy on this earth wisely. Not by taking crazy amounts of time to make a decision, but by making a decision based on what I know to be true. And if you use this framework, of looking at what you're good at, what you love, what is sustainable, and what is going to follow the mission that you want to serve, you will come up with something that's going to be meaningful to you. So my whole point is this. If you know that there is something that you can do, something that you can be, that is more than what you currently are, do not hesitate to take that step. Think about it, plan for it, but do not hesitate to take action. Because time will pass and it will only get harder as it goes. I am a living example of what happens when you take that risk. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy. There are some days when I think back and I ask myself, what would have happened if I just stuck with the safe option? But then I remember everything that this life has given me because of making that decision. And that is what I invite you to do now. Consider these points, and if you know there's something more for you, you don't need to quit your job tomorrow and change, but you should take the first step to do so. This whole journey that I went through has been such an inspiration for me, and is one of the reasons we've been so heavily involved in training and certifying life coaches and personal trainers. Because there's so many great people out there that have all the people skills, all the knowledge to really make a positive impact as a coach, but find themselves in a career or in a position where they just don't think that that's possible, or they don't think it's sustainable, or whatever other excuse that they might have in their mind as to why they can't live their life as a coach and make a difference. Now, coaching is not for everyone, but if you feel like it's for you, if you're passionate about helping other people improve their mindset, their body, their health, then I would honestly say from experience, do it. Even if it's part-time, even if it's for free, because the fulfillment you feel when you see someone develop and get better, there's honestly nothing like it. And if what I've just said excites you and lights you up, that's probably a signal that being a coach is the right decision for you. So this has been my journey. To cap it off, I went from a lawyer, I became a PT and a life coach. Now I have the privilege of coaching some amazing clients, training and certifying other coaches, and doing events and retreats all around the world. This is what I do now, and I could never have imagined that this would be my life. It's not easy, can be challenging, but I'm so happy that I made the decision. And if I fail, at least I know that I tried. And at least I have no doubts in my mind about what could have been. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening with me here today. I hope you found this helpful. If you want any other topics covered on this podcast relating to mindset, to fitness, emotional intelligence, nutrition, please post it in the comments below. I read all of the comments, I take the feedback, and I try to plan these podcasts to give you the information you need to build the best body and brain possible so you can perform at your best and smash your life and smash your goals in the process. So thank you so much for listening with me today. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.